been scarred and I've been bruised. I have learned just what to do. I need to leave my past behind me. I need to look to the future. No matter what will come, no matter what I've done, I know just what to do. And that's all because of you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're seeing my face for the first time, my name is Z Mavumengwana. I am the face behind you, okay? Your mental health and personal development channel. I see we've got a lot of new people. We thank you. Thank you for liking us enough to stay. You will be honored and appreciated, and we will express that in how diligently we prepare, in how consistently we deliver, and in the quality of content we keep on bringing to you. Today I've got a guest again. Thank you for responding to my previous atypical video that we had last week, and we've got a guest again and another colleague today, and that colleague is Kusela Juri. We need Tingo today. I think this topic necessitates the presence of Tingo. For our resident people, they know what that means. To the people that are giving us a try, Tingo is the stuffed animal that we use to express the heaviness of what could potentially be carried in that topic. So I think let's leave this guy here. It's always a nice reminder, because emotions are such a catch you off guard kind of thing. Sometimes you're not really aware why you're feeling a bit off balance, and if you saw the unicorn on the screen, that may be an indication as to why you're not feeling quite yourself. As you can see on the screen, we are validating something that is extremely difficult to talk about, and that is the grief from miscarriages. We are here to normalize that, and I'm doing that alongside a colleague of mine who sees a lot of these cases, walks a lot of their recovery journeys, and is here to share what about it is so atypical, so difficult, and we'll see if we can semblance a way that can throw something into your coping basket resource, and you can feel validated, affirmed, and human and normal. We're all about reminding you that you're okay. Miscarriages are a different kind of loss, in the sense that the environment doesn't typically change to accommodate your loss. When we lose living people, there's a big shift around that matches the loss that you have suffered. They are not at home, other people are feeling it, there's just a massive adjustment, and the more wounded you feel and you are matched in the environment, you feel like the synchronicity in your experience. That is not the case for somebody that has lost a baby that wasn't yet born, more so if people weren't aware of the pregnancy. So much that there's a discord in how you're feeling and how the environment around you is behaving, and that can make you feel so psychotic, like your grief is not valid, like maybe you're a bit dramatic about it, and that you should get over it because nobody is walking that journey with you. It's a lonely loss, it's a misunderstood loss, it's an unaccounted for loss, but it's a valid loss nonetheless. And Kusela Juri is here to take us through experiences that she has observed as a clinician, and to deposit some clinical skills and tools that may help you in the recovery of how to make sense of the loss of your little one. Mamujur, welcome to the couch. Thank you so much for honoring us. I've given a brief context, according to my perspective, of what makes a miscarriage so atypical to be then classified as loss and death, so much that people don't even know if they can call it that when they've suffered it. There's a tension with the description, and there's always risk when your experiences don't have a name, because then it means there's no formula to follow. You know how to behave in a death situation. There's cultural norms and standards of what life should look like. There isn't that for a miscarriage. You don't even know how to narrate it. Do I say my child has passed away? Do I say I lost a pregnancy? It's a mess. Weigh in, why are miscarriages such a different grieving process compared to atypical grief process?
Hello Zianda, and hello everyone. I think we need to start with a background story with why miscarriages become so difficult to grieve. Growing up, we are playing house. If you're a female, you're playing mom. There are always kids. So we are built in that way that one day I'm going to be a mother. And now the time finally comes that here is the pregnancy, I'm pregnant, I'm expecting. The excitement around that, because now you are going to have a mini you, and all of a sudden that is cut short. The way we feel it also differs from how far you are in the pregnancy. Because if it's too early, then you have not bonded as much as when you're starting to feel the movements, when you're starting to understand that now I'm carrying a human inside of me. So there's a background story to it.
Something that shocks me in miscarriage loss, in infant loss, and all similar losses when a baby wasn't yet born is a feeling you wouldn't expect to be experienced by somebody that is grieving. It's such a clear thing that you did nothing wrong. But in miscarriages, the grief process is so guilt-ridden. Instead of feeling sad, guilt is normally the overriding emotion. Why is that? What has been your observation in what lays them with guilt so much when they can't control life and death, any life and death, and this isn't any different?
Guilt comes from different things. First of all, as a mom, in fact, an expecting woman, you are told you need to eat, you need to take your vitamins, you need to do this, you need to be careful of that and that and that, both from the medical side of things and from cultural background. You can't be walking around at night, you're gonna catch a cold, all those things, the stereotypes, the beliefs and whatnot. So automatically it becomes your responsibility to look after the fetus that is growing inside. So the minute you lose that, then it means that you didn't do a good job, because your job was to protect growing inside of you. So that's the first point where you feel like you failed
At that assigned responsibility.
Of course.
Another guilt that typically shocks me, we know children in utero aren't behavioral. They don't plan things. But there seems to be such a difficult guilt with feeling like, almost like the baby didn't choose to stay inside of you. Like it's like they made a choice that you are not worth this experience. Have you also observed this, where someone almost feels like, my womb isn't good enough, as if there was a good enough decision to be made? That people that carry to term somewhat have a better uterus, or like their babies chose them. Does that also play into the guilt, to feel like a baby didn't want to stay inside of you?
Not so much, because remember, when we're grieving, we become quite careful of who we blame about the loss. So it's easy when it's me, when it's my fault, when I'm the one that was wrong, meaning the person that has lost the baby. And the question will always become, why me? Meaning something that is wrong is with you. Because if this baby was with someone else, then they would have survived. So why me? What did I do wrong? And it also goes back, sometimes when you find out about pregnancy, maybe it wasn't planned, and obviously you're going to be shocked, and you will say things like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was not ready, and whatnot and whatnot. And those things that you say during the time that you find out that you're pregnant, when you lose the pregnancy, they will come back to you, because maybe I wasn't appreciative enough of the gift that I was given. So
punished.
Now I'm being punished for what I said in the beginning. And some people, the reality is, some people will think of aborting when they find out for the first time that they are pregnant and they have not planned the pregnancy. So the minute you lose the baby, it's like, this is me, this is all my fault, this is all my fault. I'm the one that did not appreciate, I'm the one that didn't want this baby. Therefore, when you lose it, it's like, it's what you said in the beginning.
I suppose that also comes from the mystery of what happens in miscarriages. With a physical death, there's normally an accompanying explanation as to why the person died. When they were ill, there's also a momentary period where you start contemplating that morbidity is possible.
Yes.
And you contemplate what would then happen. You play around with your scenarios. It's like you got a brief heads up that death is a possibility. Miscarriages are so mysterious in that a stomach is covered. There is no one that is constantly watching what is going on and at what point was there a cessation of life. And in the delivery of this news, medical practitioners are also honest in that mystery, in that they cannot offer you a comprehensive explanation except for the declaration of the news and possible scenarios that could have led to this and risk factors and so forth. But there is never a definitive reason to say at this point life came to an end for this particular reason. And of course, when you can't assign a real reason. It's very easy to pick the reason and think maybe you had something to do with the reason. Have you found that that mystery complicates miscarriage grief?
Definitely it does, because we believe in understanding the cause. I broke my leg because I slipped and fell. This happened because A, B, and C happened. So when someone tells you that you lost a baby and they don't know why, what is the meaning of that? Does it mean every time you're pregnant, this is going to happen? So it taps into future pregnancies, because if they don't know what happened, how can we avoid it in future? Meaning, next time you fall pregnant, that is always going to be sitting at the back of your mind, that I might lose this one too.
Speaking of future pregnancies, a complication I've also observed in miscarriage grief is not knowing how to contextualize the baby you lost in your other babies when you had successful pregnancies. That is such a difficult thing for them to form meaning, that okay, if I had pregnancies that I carried to term, 2 more after my miscarriage, do I have 3 children? And because the fear is so real while you are carrying, because I mean a second miscarriage is possible. There's a complicated ambivalent relationship with the baby in utero, because I'm scared. I don't want to attach just in case, I suffer that blow. But now it feels like I'm delaying when I begin affection for this baby. And it's such a conflicting, painful experience that it's like I'm not loving this one enough, because I am scared that I may also lose this one. Uncomplicate that for me. Affirm it, validate it. I'm not expecting you to have answers for it, but it's a dynamic that is there, and I want to weigh in to be the voice with someone that is like, especially if they weren't showing, there wasn't even an expectation from other people about this baby. Now you out here thinking, if I don't mention the baby, I don't get to answer questions about it, so it's fine, I have 1 child, but then you feel like you're discounting the existence of a child you're carrying, which was your child.
Look, it differs from individual to individual, in a sense that you may keep it a secret but still embrace the pregnancy, even though you are watching out for that gap. Because if the miscarriage happened in 6 weeks, so you are waiting for 6 weeks to pass, because it's like if you go over 6 weeks, then you become less anxious about the pregnancy, because at least it means that you may be able to carry this one to term. However, it becomes difficult when it happens, let's say in 8 months, in 7 months.
The entire pregnancy you are waiting.
You are waiting throughout, and the underlying part to that is that you might actually miscarry because of the stress that you're putting yourself under, because you are constantly worrying about, what if I don't make it to 7 months? What if I don't make it to 9 months? So it becomes a problem in that way. So there's a 2-part to it as well, because due to the stress that you're putting yourself under, because you're thinking, am I being careful? Am I doing everything right? Even though you don't know what you did wrong in the first pregnancy. Because remember, when you lost the baby, you said something was wrong with me. I did something wrong. And you carry that to your next pregnancy. And you're constantly waiting, okay, when is 8 months coming? When is 7 months coming? And by the time you get to that point, you are already stressed beyond limits, because you keep worrying about making it to the next month. So it's a complicated one, really. But I think the one thing to understand is that it is normal to stress, but just as long as you follow the right procedures, like if they tell you to take vitamins, whatever that you are told to do, you do it right. Because remember the concept of controlling what you can and leaving the rest, because you cannot control everything, but the things that are within your control, then you can control those. It boils down to that, really.
Mamjur, let's say they are sitting on the couch, they have suffered this miscarriage. Give them an affirmation. What would you say to such a person? They've lost the baby. What do you think they need to hear that isn't said. Because normally they complain that the delivery of the news was so quick. It was a 2-second thing that there's just a lot of affirmation they needed that wasn't said. Let's presume they are sitting there. What would you say to such a person? What do you think they need to hear the most coming from another person that wasn't pregnant to try and comfort them after what has just happened?
In one word, grieve. It is okay to grieve. You mentioned the ambivalence of whether I'm going to grieve this. Was this a baby? Was this, what was it? So you grieve.
And even just adding on to that, I don't think there's something that people misunderstand about grief, that they think it's the gold ticket only for bereavement. But grief accompanies loss. It doesn't matter what kind of loss. Even for the people that don't share the philosophy that children in utero are babies. There are people that don't believe that it's not a baby. So their philosophy doesn't allow them to grieve. But grieving for a loss isn't grieving for a baby necessarily. You grieve for the loss, whatever your loss is.
Of course.
Your loss may be the loss of hope, the loss of a particular future. Now your future is going to look different. The loss of a love you wished you could give, like a longing to give that love that you now can no longer give. So you don't necessarily need to have been attached to a baby, because I know there will be defensive people that, as their way of coping, they will not acknowledge it as a baby, or as their scientific standpoint, they will not acknowledge it as a baby. And they're still hosting these painful emotions, and they don't understand, why am I in pain? Because I know this was not a baby.
And to come in there, sometimes the loss is not even the actual loss of the baby, but the loss of hope, the loss of excitement. Because whether you were shocked in the beginning or not, the time you start to accept the pregnancy, you embrace it, you are so excited, you cannot wait to meet this little human that is growing inside of you. And miscarriages make you lose that hope, make you lose that excitement. And that's something to grieve for.
What does recovery look like? Because there's prescriptive ways of how to recover from a typical bereavement. Like people come and sing, for like a 2 weeks nyana, they drop some long life milk, and then they start to disappear, and there's a bit of a lonely part because their journaling and being busy is over. But you kind of know what to expect. The Kubler-Rosses and David Kessels of the world have offered grief stages. Like we've got some formula nyana, of what to expect. There isn't a formula for this one. What does recovery look like?
Look, you can still apply the formula, because you're grieving, you're going through the stages. You are having you're in denial, you're having your anger, you're having your bargaining, because when you're saying that, if I should have expected the pregnancy from the beginning, maybe I wouldn't be sitting in this position. That's bargaining already. So you go through all of that, but there's an extra element. Sometimes when you're pregnant at the same time as friends. And sometimes when you go to the clinic, we go together. So we get to form some sort of relationships, whether we're not friends or not, but at least we know that our babies are born more or less around the same time. And now you are faced with, I'm going to have to see these people. I'm going to have to explain that I don't have a baby. And that can become overwhelming on its own. So we cannot give a formula. It is just that you have to understand your own process, what it is that I'm grieving. Because some, like I said, some grieve loss of hope. And not even loss of hope for the current pregnancy, but maybe for future pregnancies. Because it also depends on the complications that happen during the miscarriages. Because some will be told that you may never conceive again. So it really depends
on what you have
lost.
Which really affirms to me that, like all grief stories, grief is personal. It doesn't need to match anybody else's grief. And you can lose the exact same thing, be attached to it in the exact same way, and your grief is going to be different. Because grief is a subjective experience of what each individual has lost. And your recovery will look different. Some people heal and plant their excitement into the next pregnancy. Some people decide, I'm not trying this again. Some people find a different form of expression. I will sketch and turn it into a story. I will paint and express my pain in that way. And just because they're not grieving how you would expect them to grieve, it doesn't mean they're not grieving. Some people will defer their grief for later. That I'm not doing this right now. And your grief is personal. Forever. It doesn't need to match anybody else's grief story. And as we wrap up, Mom Judy, I think weigh in on what people around them are supposed to do. Because remember, when there has been a collective loss, we had the same picture, we had the same jokes, we commemorate together on what we miss about them. So there's people that join you in your reflection. There's pictures, there's just a lot that is collectively shared. It's like your grief is shared and halved. And when you've lost a baby, people don't know what to do. They've never seen your baby. They don't miss your baby. They've never met your baby. And I don't know how people can then express empathy when they didn't lose what you lost.
That will take us to sort of unpacking what support means. Because sometimes we think support means saying something. And sometimes when we say something, we don't say the right things. Because there's a tendency sometimes to say, you will be okay. A person that's grieving knows that they will be okay. It is just that
we're not okay now.
I'm not okay now. So we need to deal with that. And I think the best thing is just being there, being present. If the person that's grieving wants to sit and be around people, allow that. Check on them. Have you eaten? You supporting someone does not necessarily mean that you have to talk about the loss every time, but you can just be present. And I think that's what people need to understand, because you can never say the right things to someone that is grieving a loss, or maybe let's say someone that just had a miscarriage. There is like people who come and say, you will have another baby. I know, or maybe I might not, but right now that is not what the person needs. But they need someone who is going to be there to understand, to say, can I make you something to eat? Can I take you out? Can I, the practical things, small practical things, to say you are not alone. I'm here. I feel your pain. And you don't necessarily have to put that across to actually say to someone, to tell them that I support you. You can just do little things. Come, let us go to the mall. I need to buy you something. Or look, this is what I bought for you. Can you go somewhere for tea? Can we take a drive somewhere, because you see that they are slowly withdrawing from other people. So the best thing is to observe and see what you can do, instead of trying to talk to them about what happened, because sometimes maybe they don't want to talk about it.
And I think I want to add there as well that there's no right or wrong way to do empathy. You just do empathy. If you genuinely empathize, you empathize. That you can't perform empathy, something you can just feel and something that you can just express awkwardly, weirdly. They're not expecting you to do a specific thing as well. It's a reminder to say, in your dark moment, I'm sitting here with you. Don't know what to do. They also don't know what to do. And it's kind of not about you as well. So please don't obsess about saying the right thing and being the right friend. Supporting a grieving person is definitely not about you. We're going to start wrapping it up there. Before we close, Kusi, what not to say? We've said how to support. What should you definitely not say to a person that has lost their little one?
You will have another one.
You're still young.
That's the worst. You are still young. Oh, this was the first. Oh, definitely there will be more to follow. And that you will be okay. Like, and it's something that people say a lot, that you will be okay. When you're falling apart, when you're crying, when you're going through your emotions, you know that I will be okay. But you just want to be allowed to feel.
You okay, family? I'm gonna have to stop it there because of our time commitment that we keep making to you. And we've done mom loss. This is a different take to grief. We'll do these different variations of grief, but the message is consistent. Your grief is personal. as it ought to be, but more than anything, your grief is valid, even if it doesn't fit a typical grief box. You acknowledge to yourself what your experience means for you, and if you're feeling it, it's there. It's okay. Semblance meaning how it best makes sense for you. If you want to discount the first pregnancy, say I've got 2 living children and that's that on that. We don't get to tell you that the baby you lost also features. But if that was a child for you, they had a name, they had a nursery, they are part of this family. If you believe in something that is a larger power and you believe that they've been assigned to you, they belong to this ancestral home, and whatever the case is, your experience is your experience. We are scripted in experience. Experience writes different things for all of us. Grieve for what you are grieving for. And your grief is real. And it takes as long as it takes. It can be every year when children that would be their age are now off to school, and now they're off to grade 2, and the date they were due, estimated to be due on. There's different triggers for everyone. And don't let political houses and philosophical standpoints tell you what your loss was and what your loss wasn't. We can never comprehensively touch the depth of your injury in 20 minutes on a YouTube video. But I hope those words resonate with you, release you from the shackle of feeling like you don't have permission to go through something that other people aren't going through and that they didn't even witness. I know grief is made better by witnesses. And in miscarriages, unfortunately, you don't have that. You don't have people that keep on reminding you that you lost what you lost. Sometimes they don't even know, which puts you in a primary position to defend your reality. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mrs. Stur, thank you for letting me bully you into coming here. I played that card just to consistently deliver to you guys in a way that I think best serves you and demystifies what psychology looks like. It's such a mystery profession where people don't really know what we talk about, how the things we say actually help. And with these little conversations, I hope it starts to become clearer, and maybe you can be more open to using it as a resource to beat the injuries you are facing. It's a faster process when you're doing it with an ally. It saves a lot of time. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week, Tuesday.